When you're embarking on a new knitting adventure with completely new techniques, it can sometimes be really hard to understand which patterns would be friendly to your skill level. And in my previous video where I explained everything that you need to know for knitting stranded color work, I heard from you that it would be really useful if I compiled a list of knitting patterns that would be friendly for beginning color work adventures. Welcome to Sorceress Crafts channel. I'm Spigina, or the Sorceress. I learned to knit in the previous century, and these days I help other people learn how to knit. In today's video we are having a pattern roundup. I have looked at Ravelry and I have chosen patterns that I think would be good for starting your stranded colorwork knitting journey. But it doesn't mean that they are boring or like simplistic. I have also included several patterns that I actually want to knit myself. I just think that they would be approachable for any skill level. And by the way, in this video when I am talking about beginners, I specifically mean people who haven't yet knit stranded colorwork or who have maybe tried it sometime in the past and have had bad experiences and now want to restart the adventure. When I talk about beginners, I'm not like referencing people who have just started knitting. I'm talking with the people who already are kind of comfortable with knitting and now want to get into stranded colorwork knitting specifically. I have split the patterns in several categories, and I will start at the easiest category and then we will go into like more adventurous stuff, because hey, I'm not a knitting police and I always say that you should always start with the projects that make you excited, and maybe the very simple like accessories aren't your style, you just wouldn't wear them and you would like to make something a bit more elaborate because that's more your style. And I absolutely think that you should start with that, because if the project is exciting for you, it will help you get through some of the frustrations and it will keep you motivated to learn more. It will keep you motivated to seek out information and maybe ask questions when you are feeling stuck. I have put all of the patterns in a Ravelry bundle, so after you watch this video you can simply click on the link and check out all of the patterns. You don't need to search for them while you're watching the video because that's annoying. They are all there in one place. And just a quick note on the patterns, I haven't tried all of them. That simply wouldn't be possible, but I have done my best to go through their pattern pages, project pages, comments, everything. I have looked for all of the red flags that I could see for patterns, and I have excluded all of the patterns that I felt like they're looking a bit sus. The patterns that I have put in the list, I feel like they should be a quality pattern that won't be incorrect or that won't like stump you somewhere. But again, I haven't personally tested them all, so keep that in mind. And when talking about the patterns, I will also explain my reasoning behind choosing them. So maybe if you don't find something that entirely matches your aesthetics in this video, you will already have some knowledge how to look for patterns that would match your aesthetics, but are very similar in like difficulty wise to what I'm showing here. And let's hope that human technology doesn't fail me. Let's just say that the start of this video has been rough. I have my laptop here, I will be looking at Ravelry patterns and I will be talking you through, and here on the screen you will also see everything that I'm looking at. First category I have chosen for the patterns are cowls. I think they are the absolute easiest thing that you can start knitting colorwork with, because you are only knitting on round and you aren't doing any increases or decreases. You are literally just knitting a tube on round, and then you have options to play with lots of really fun patterns. And speaking of fun patterns, the first one I have chosen is the Cryptid Doodle Infinity Cowl by Jamie Lomax. Her patterns are really interesting because they are mix and match your own style. So she releases those themed knitting charts. Fittingly for my taste, I have chosen the Cryptid Doodle, but she has so many different themes. Autumn, witchy, seaside, all sorts of different things. She's well known for writing really good patterns that will be easy to follow. The repeats are super easy. You don't need to do anything crazy. When I looked at those patterns, it was important for me that you wouldn't have to catch any floats, because I feel like that adds an extra difficulty to knitting stranded colorwork. So in this case, you would only need to think about how to manage the existing floats and how to change the colors. And despite the very colorful appearances of this pattern, you won't need more than 2 colors per row. So even though in the promo images more like 3 or even 4 colors per row, you don't really need to do that, or you can do it with a duplicate stitch. You can simply do this with 2 colors per row. It's knitted DK weight yarn with an appropriate gauge of 24 stitches per 10 cm. I think that's an amazing place where to start, and it has several size options. But if the thought of knitting creatures seems too intimidating, I have also chosen a basic doodle pattern from Jamie Lomax. Again, it's for an infinity cowl, and in this pattern you would be knitting more like geometric repeats that would be very easy to memorize, and the finished garment itself will be a bit more traditional stranded colorwork style. Again, this pattern is also knitted DK weight at 24 stitches per 10 cm. When you get her patterns, you can also mix and match them between the patterns that you have bought. And I have heard so many good reviews about her patterns that I truly think that this is a great starting place. As you can see here, you can also do like striped looks. And by the way, don't be scared to explore patterns like these where the color work is coming in stripes. When I say that beginners should start with only 2 colors, I mean that only 2 colors per each row. But you can easily change colors between the rows, and so you can knit this very interesting striped look. If you're not into knitting infinity cowls, fair enough. I have a fair enough cowl by Home of Cords. Again, it's a pattern for DK weight yarn. This time it's knitted 21 stitches per 10 cm, and this will be a very simple repeat. Nice geometric patterns, will be very easy to memorize, and this would also be a very quick project. And honestly, this pattern is a very good example on what I'm looking for when I say that it would be like a very easy repeat. So for each motif you are doing only like maybe a 6 stitch repeat, or maybe even less. You don't need to really think about the chart. You can pay a lot of attention to what you're actually knitting. And in a similar vein, but maybe a bit more modern flair, I have chosen the Toasty Triangles cowl by Shina Billow. This one is for a worsted weight yarn at an 18 stitches per 10 cm, so even easier. I do think that starting with the heavier weight yarns would be easier for beginners. And this one plays a lot with triangles. It's not like your traditional like maybe fairy motif or like a drawing. It's just purely geometric, and this would also be an amazing stash buster item. And importantly, for all of those patterns, I paid attention that you wouldn't have to catch floats. So when I was looking at the patterns, I paid attention that like there wouldn't be more than like, I don't know, 5 to 6 stitches between color changes. So you can simply change the colors and not worry about anything else. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I have also chosen a cowl that looks like really traditional and gives those very cozy vibes. So this is a Milky Way cowl by Karolina Adamczyk. This is a pattern for iron weight yarn, and it's knit at 18 stitches per 10 cm. So again, no crazy small yarns to deal with, and it uses a traditional morning star motif. I also really love the way how this picture is styled. It just really evokes that cozy, nice feeling, and you can already imagine how you would be sitting down and knitting it. I absolutely love this cowl. Honestly, if I was a person who wears cowls, this one I would definitely knit. And to close off my cowl section, I have something that isn't a cowl, but I really couldn't decide in which category to put it. It's Poachy by Kate Davis Designs. So it's a knit sleeve for your hot water bottle. And I put it in the same category as cowls, because even though you are doing some of the shaping is never done simultaneously with the color work. The color work will be knit only as a round tube. So that's why I decided like, okay, it will go in this category. It had nowhere else to go. I also like this particular design because it has a button closure. It doesn't try to like squeeze in all of the bottle through the little neck. That I feel like that might be frustrating. And I just really like the traditional morning star design. I think it looks amazing. I must admit, I used to be skeptical about knitting sleeves for your hot water bottle because it seemed like maybe like a weird project to do, I don't know. But now when I'm regularly prepping one for my girlfriend, I have been thinking that like, oh, I would love to give her something a bit more cozy, something that like also gives that like emotional warmth, not only like the hot water. So I am thinking about making this, and I love that in the pattern pictures she has played with colors also. So there's like this one very traditional one with gray and white, very cottagecore, very traditional, but then there's also like a more colorful one, and I really like that. I appreciate patterns who include more color. This pattern is also knit at a DK weight and at 21 stitches per 10 centimeters. So again, that will be a project that will go reasonably fast. For my next pattern category, I have chosen hats. Hat is an amazing beginner-friendly project to knit, and even if you're knitting color work all over the hat, you will still begin with like very simple tube, and then you will only need to do decreases, so that won't really be a very involved project. And also hats are one of the fastest projects to knit in general, that will give you that fast win that sometimes you need in the very beginning to build up confidence in your own skills and just get that feeling that yes, you can do that. First hat I have chosen for you is the Cartography hat by Tin Can Knits. That's yet another fairly well-known designer, and usually beginners have no issues with her patterns. It's knit with DK weight yarn at the 22 stitches per 10 centimeters, so a very reasonable gauge. It comes in variety of sizes, so it comes from newborn to adult large, and it has a really fun yet easy motif that will be very easy to memorize. And again, no long floats, no anything, and I love the colors for this title picture. It's really giving like the beginning of autumn, but it also looks equally great in just black and white, and I just really love the vibe of this hat. I think that would be an amazing choice. Next up we have a pattern where we actually have 3 hats in one pattern, so that's an amazing deal, and it's a free pattern anyway, so you will be getting a lot of value from this pattern. This is a herringbone hat by Anne Misgucci, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing any of the designer's names. I just hope I'm not butchering them completely. This is a DK weight pattern for 22 stitches per 10 centimeters. It has been knit a lot. This has over 1,000 projects and the reviews were really great. And this pattern looks way harder than it actually is. Because the repeat is made so smartly, it looks like quite intricate and really interesting. It really catches your eye, but it actually has a very simple repeat and there isn't like much that you need to pay attention to. You can just sit down and enjoy your knitting. And also it seems that the decreases are done in only one color, so you also don't need to worry about that. And I just love a really nice geometric pattern, and I think especially on hats, geometric patterns look amazing. Next up we have yet another free beanie pattern. This is a buffalo plaid beanie by Ruthie Thompson. It's knit with worsted weight yarn at 20 stitches per 10 centimeters. I love how easily you can actually achieve the plaid look in knitting, especially when you're doing like uniform squares like in this pattern. I would definitely knit this for my girlfriend, and this is definitely a pattern for all of the queers currently watching. This pattern doesn't have more title pictures, but I checked out the project ones and they look incredible, and it seems that like people have had really good time with this pattern, and there are several really fun color options that you could borrow, and I just really enjoyed looking at this. Another theme that you will see in the patterns that I have chosen is that very often those patterns look really impressive. They look like they would be really hard, but they actually aren't. I specifically looked for the patterns that will be easy to knit, and this is one of those. This is Alta by Alexandra Frankel. It's knit with worsted weight yarn at 23 stitches per 10 centimeters. It comes in several sizes and it has this interlaced motif that looks so impressive. It looks like you would have spent just ages knitting it, but in reality it's a fairly simple repeat, and I love how the designer has used the rainbow gradient here. It just showcases really nicely how you can play with different colors. I really enjoy this style where you're changing the base color but keeping the same motif color throughout. I think it just looks marvelously and so well put together. And to finish off my hat section, I have yet another Morning Star pattern. Yes, I am mildly obsessed with them. But also they just appear in lots of patterns and they are very easy to find, so yeah, you will see them quite a lot. This is a North Star hat by Marianne Stevens. It's knit with iron weight yarn at 18 stitches per 10 centimeters. With Morning Stars you sometimes have the problem that you would need to catch floats here on this one horizontal line, but because this pattern is knit at an iron weight yarn and there are so few stitches in between that I feel like in this pattern you don't even really need to catch any floats even there. And for this pattern I specifically really appreciate how it's also doing the decreases in pattern. I think it just always looks so nice, and it gives you a project that like really cool finishing touch that so many knitters love. And the decreases here should also be fairly simple, fairly straightforward. I wouldn't worry about them. So if you're looking for a more traditionally looking hat, I think that the North Star pattern would be amazing for that. Next pattern category that I have chosen are mittens. Mittens would still be quite straightforward to knit because there isn't too much shaping. Sure, you will need to pay a little bit of attention to knitting a thumb. Other than that, mittens are still a project on the easier side of knitting. For my first mitten pattern, I have chosen the Driftless Mitts by Black Cat Knitting Company. They are knit at DK weight yarn and they will use 22 stitches per 10 centimeters. And the pattern itself will be super easy because for the most part you are actually knitting with just one color and then you are doing like a little bit of gradient and then finishing again with a single color. So if you are looking for a pattern to just like dip your toes just the tiniest bit in the color work, this is definitely the one that you should choose. The only drawback for this pattern is that it comes only in one size, and sadly mittens category is the only one where I couldn't really fully find like a good range of patterns that would also be in different sizes. So sadly that is something that you need to take in account. If you want to knit mittens, for whatever reason, sadly they come only in like either one or very limited sizes. I don't know what's up with that. But also for a pattern like this, it would be really easy to just change the size for yourself. So I decided that I will still include that. And just so you know, mittens are the only category where I made this exception. So yeah, this will be a really fast, rewarding project where you can just simply try out if you actually like knitting with more than one color. Next up, I have Heli or Helu by Tina Koo. Now these mittens are knit with fingering weight yarn at 32 stitches and they are actually mittens, they aren't like fingerless mittens. Similarly as previous ones, you will knit huge part in just one color, then you will do like a really interesting color work bit and then finish with the other color. Again, I feel like that's a very good way how to start. And yes, this pattern uses fingering weight yarn, so that kind of adds a little bit of complexity. But then again, for things like mittens, fingering yarn is very commonly used. And even though I normally recommend for people to start with heavier weight yarns, there are some people who just don't like knitting with heavier weight yarns. So starting with like a fingering weight mittens would actually be a good choice for you if you don't enjoy knitting with like heavier weight yarns. This pattern comes in 3 different sizes, and for the stranded color work, this pattern uses only charts. There won't be any written instructions. And this is a thing that you will see most often in stranded color work patterns. There usually won't really be written out instructions, so you will need to work from charts. Don't worry about that. Reading color work charts really aren't hard, I promise. And I covered how to do that in my previous video where I talk about everything that you'll need to know for knitting color work. Oh, and the very nice part about this pattern is that it's actually free. When I was putting together this list, I looked at so many patterns. I really scoured Ravelry just to find something that's really good, and that means that sometimes I have also found patterns that aren't really well known at all. So this is a Winter is Coming Mittens by Beagle Knits. It has only 8 projects, but I looked at the pattern pictures and I think this deserves so much more attention actually. You are actually getting 4 different motifs in this one pattern. All of them are very wintry, feature the morning star, but also like snowy trees and just a geometric pattern. I love the color choices here, I love the vibes. The pattern is in English, Italian and Spanish. It calls for a DK weight yarn and 26 stitches per 10 centimeters. And I also love how you could knit matching mittens that aren't exactly the same, so siblings not twins sort of vibe. For whatever reason, I just really enjoy that, and I love when one pattern gives you that option. And again, the motifs themselves look fairly easy, and because it's a really small project, so it's a fingerless mitten, you also won't need to spend too much time on it. It will also be quite quick, and it's just like a fun thing. And depending on the colors and yarns you choose, it can be either quite traditional or quite fun and quirky. So I was really happy when I found this pattern, and I truly think it deserves more attention. Next up, we have Fingerless Layish by Jennifer Berg. I'm really not sure that I'm pronouncing the pattern name correctly. I'm sorry if I'm not. It's knit with the DK weight yarn at 25 stitches per 10 centimeters. On her page, designer says that she likes to include traditional motifs from her heritage. Those mittens reflect that really nicely. The colors are just to die for. Gorgeous, 10 out of 10, no notes. And I love the motif. I love how the palm side is different from the other side. And just overall, this looks like such a fun knit. I think it would be truly enjoyable. So far, we have only looked either at fingerless mittens or at mittens where you are not doing any decreases in the colorwork motif. but those ones are a bit different. Those are Malangen by Jørgen Jonsen. They are knit with a DK weight yarn at 26 stitches per 10 centimeters, and they feature a gorgeous simple geometric motif that gives like those very nice like retro vibes. I can fully imagine those mittens in like a movie from 70s or 80s or something like that, and I love that vibe. But also in this pair, I adore how the darker and brighter blue are mixed up, so it almost looks like waves, or it almost gives you like a 3D effect where it's going like around like that. I love that. I think those are amazing mittens. And again, even though they will look like a very polished project, they aren't really that hard. The colorwork motif that you will be working here, it's not a difficult motif. And I love that the designer has included the information that this pattern is very traditional for that particular Norway region, and that his grandmother has also knit those a lot. I think that's a lovely detail and gives like more context to the pattern itself. And to finish the mittens category, I have Fishing Mittens by Jessie Ostermiller. Those could be knit either as a fingerless or a full mitten option, which is super nice. They use DK weight yarn at 27 stitches per 10 centimeters. There are a few different size options, and I just like when patterns have like a detail in them that are just almost like hidden, but actually not hidden. When you see it, you won't miss it again, but like it's not like glaringly in your face. I just think it's a lovely pattern, and I think it would be a lovely time knitting it. Next up, we have the biggest category I have in my bundle, and those are colorwork socks. I truly couldn't choose just 5 patterns to include, so I included more, and honestly most of those patterns are from my own to knit list. And I just know that lots of beginners love to start with socks. They are a really fun project to begin with. They are functional, they are practical, and they will bring lots of joy even after you've finished knitting them, so I think socks are a great place where to start. First up, I have Fletching Socks by Jessica McDonald. Those are knit in sport weight yarn with 28 stitches per 10 centimeters. I mostly included them because they have pattern only around the cuff, and then you're just knitting traditional one color sock. And also the pattern itself is very easy, so I think this would be a great place where to start. And some people had also chosen to use different colors for the accent color, so one color for the stripe and another color for the leaves. Amazing. This pattern has a matching sweater pattern. The sweater pattern is fully size inclusive, by the way. I think that's also like a nice step up, that you could start with socks and then make like a matching sweater. Next up in this category, we have none other than Stone Knits. Stone Knits is a famous sock designer who creates those fun, whimsical, really engaging sock designs. When I went through her page, I had such trouble choosing just one pattern from her. I ended choosing the Rad Radish socks because those are the ones that I want to knit for my girlfriend, and both me and her are quite fans of Charlotte Stone, who is the designer behind the Stone Knits. I love her garden themes, but she has so many interesting things in her page. Honestly, I think that with Stone Knits, you just could not go wrong with any of her patterns. All of them have great reviews, people have fun with them. You just choose the one that fits your aesthetic and just go at knitting. I also know that her patterns are very beginner friendly in the sense that like they hold your hand quite a lot, and she has a great book where she explains lots of colorwork sock knitting concepts. So honestly, Stone Knits, your best stop for any colorwork socks, and I think that most people will find something for their taste at her page. She has all sorts of really fun stuff, but there are also some bit more traditional things, so I truly encourage you, just go look at her page, choose something that speaks to you and start knitting. Like, her patterns are so interesting that she will probably get rogue into knitting colorwork socks. And she isn't really interested in knitting at all, except for knitting colorwork socks specifically from Stone Knits. So I don't know what else do I need to tell you. And the herding hens sock pattern is the first one that Rogue saw, and like she has been thinking about them ever since. I think quite soon she will actually get to knitting them. Even though I'm a huge fan of Stone Knits, there are also other amazing designers, and there are so many patterns for socks that I have saved in my favorites that I want to make. Shortbread sock by Saskia & Co. It's knit in fingering weight yarn, And yet again, it's a very nice plaid pattern. I think the name is really on point for these because like when I look at them, I think gingerbread, and I know that it's mostly the color of the yarns. You can knit them in whatever color you like. It's just that the picture really drew my attention, even though I would not knit them in the same colors. I just like them. And these socks are knit with an afterthought heel, so that's also something a bit different that you will start seeing with Colourwork socks. If they have patterns like these where you are knitting Colourwork all over the socks, you will start seeing heel constructions that aren't just heel flap and gusset. You will very often see like afterthought heels because those are simply easier to incorporate in Colourwork motifs. Next up, we have a pattern that I have really special plans for. It's a mossy sock by Helena Magnusson. They are knit with 3 colors, but at every row you are working only with 2 colors, so there's no issue at all. They look just so cozy, and if there's one thing that I would like to wear, it's moss. So these pictures really speak to me, and I love the vibe. I love that they are called the moss socks, and I absolutely will knit those. I don't know when I will get to that project because like I have a whole thing planned around them. I hope it will be this year, but if you keep watching my channel, you will find out eventually. And if you're feeling adventurous, there is also a matching sweater pattern and a matching hat pattern. Next up, we have a free pattern. It's Memento by Connor of Calling for Orpheus. The pattern calls for fingering weight yarn, and the socks are knit in 9 stitches per 2.5 centimeters. So with socks, that is a thing that you will quite commonly see. The gauge won't always be given for 10 centimeters, but it will very often be given for 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch. It's done that way because socks are a small circumference project, and if you were to knit like a full swatch, you would almost be knitting a swatch that's bigger than your socks. So for projects like these, it makes sense to use like a slightly different measurement for checking your gauge. These socks are inspired by commercial merch that's not available anymore. So the designer was lamenting the fact that they can't get them anymore. And so here comes a free pattern that we all can use. I really enjoy sock pairs where the base color and the accent color are switched between the socks. I think that's like a really nice look. And these socks look fun and engaging, and I think it would be really cool to knit them. Next up, we have Ruska by Andrea Full. These socks are knit in fingering weight yarn at 29 stitches per 10 centimeters, and they are just the perfect autumn vibes. That moment where the leaves are starting to turn in all sorts of gorgeous colors, from yellow to red, and I love that this pattern is using a variegated yarn. So without actually changing the colors, you can get the really autumn feel of the trees being in all sorts of different colors and the leaves falling on the ground. I just feel like these socks would give me the same joy as stepping into fallen leaves, and that's quite a lot of joy. And even though there are only 7 projects on the pattern page, I think this would be an amazing starting point for your knitting journey on the Colourwork socks. I think you would have lots of fun, and this pattern would also be quite easy because you're only knitting Colourwork on the cuffs and here before reducing for the toes, but then you are shaping the heel without any Colourwork, so you can use traditional heel flap and gusset construction, which is also really nice. And I promise this is the last pattern in this category. It's a Rhubarb and Custard Socks by Jeanette Knits. This is one of the few patterns that I actually have in my library. I also have yarn for it. And I mostly wanted to include this pattern because it's knit toe up. I personally really prefer to knit my socks toe up, not cuff down, but that's a thing that you quite rarely see in Colourwork socks. So when I find some, I quite often am drawn to them, and all of Jeanette Knit's sock patterns are knit like that. They start at the toes, and they also have a really interesting, nice heel construction. This construction would basically give you the same comfort as gusset in your sock, but it doesn't mess with the Colourwork. So that's a really smart way how to use that. And this pattern is a really good example how your color choice might fully change the feel and the look of the finished project. So designer has chosen a very creamy colors where the background is even lighter than the contrasting color, and that gives like a feminine vibe to them. But you could also choose like a darker background with a very contrasting color, and that would give like a completely different feel to them. Or you could go with like really fun colors. This pattern really will allow you to play with colors, and depending on the colors you choose, the outcome will be very different aesthetics wise. And I am quite drawn to the patterns where A simple color choice might fully change the feel of the finished object. If you're one of the adventurous knitters who absolutely wants to start the colorwork journey with sweaters, I've got you, don't worry. Just because it's a sweater doesn't automatically mean that it will be a terribly complicated project. So if you want to start with a bigger project for your colorwork, you absolutely should go for it. And I have selected several patterns that I think would be appropriate for that. We absolutely cannot talk about colorwork sweaters without mentioning Jennifer Steingass. I have chosen the Avena pattern from her. It's a pattern that calls for a worsted weight yarn, and it's knit at 20 stitches per 10 centimeters, and it's one of her most popular beginner-friendly patterns, and I can see why. It looks just gorgeous. The diagonal motif over it is just so eye-catching, but it would also be easy to knit, and I highly suggest knitting anything from this designer. Simply because I have chosen this particular pattern doesn't mean that you need to go with this one. Most of her patterns will be beginner-friendly. She's also well known for writing really good round yokes, so you won't have those cases where your yoke ends up at like your elbow or like you're having like bat wings. Her round yokes fit really nicely. Oh, and of course, in the sweater category, all of the patterns I'll be showing are fully size inclusive because I absolutely have no time or patience for patterns that are not size inclusive. And to my best ability, I have also made sure that they are correctly size graded. So for Avena, you could be using just one contrasting color, or you could be using like a gradient, or you could be using a variegated yarn, depending on like what vibe you're getting from the pattern. Is it like leaves or feathers? The colors that you choose will really support that. And overall, I feel this would be an excellent choice. The colorwork repeat won't be too difficult, and I also love how it looks very different from any other designer's work. If you would love to start with a sweater but you are really afraid about doing any shaping in colorwork, a really good option for you would be doing colorwork just on the body and knitting yoke in just one color, like here in this pattern, Cocooned by Rachel Ilsley. It's a DK weight pattern that calls for 18 stitches and 10 centimeters, and you are only doing colorwork on your waist and a little bit on your cuff, but then all of the yoke shaping is done in just one color, which is an amazing idea for a starting point. And I love the geometric pattern that she has here, and like the repeat would be really nice and easy, and you could really play with colors or different yarns. The pattern itself calls this like a modified raglan, but to me this really reads like a contiguous shoulder construction, which is by far my all-time favorite shoulder construction. I'm not sure, I don't own this pattern, I can't really check, but from what I'm seeing in the pictures, I'm fairly sure that it's a contiguous shoulder yoke construction. And I really appreciate designers who include motifs around the cuffs in the sweaters. If there isn't one, I will very often add one, like I did for this sweater, because to my mind, cuffs are the one thing that I will see most often, and I want to look at the pretty thing that I've knit. Like, I won't really see this, like the circular yoke that I have made. I only see it when I look in the mirror. But the cuffs, I'll just keep seeing them all of the time. So that's one of the reasons why I really prefer patterns like these, where there are little details around the cuffs. Now, speaking about design only around your cuffs, how about on your whole sleeve, but still not doing any color work on the yoke? Richmond Hill Pullover by Mary Pranica is a pattern that has been on my to-knit list for ages, and I don't know why I haven't gotten to it yet. Every time I see that, I just keep thinking, I need it. Because look at it. It just looks so stunning. It's striking. I feel like this is a show-stopping piece. It's a raglan construction sweater. You are knitting it top down. You're working most of the sweater just in one color, and then on sleeves you are doing full-on color work. And even though the color work on sleeves looks quite impressive, it actually wouldn't be really difficult, because on every row you are only working with 2 colors, and the repeats are really simple. They are very geometric. The big effect is achieved by picking out a really nice color combo. You'll be working with like either 5 or 6 colors here, and that is the thing that gives you the striking effect. And yeah, sure, it's a fingering weight sweater, so yes, you will need to knit that sea of stockinette. That might not be for everybody, I understand that, But I don't know, this pattern just catches my eye every single time I look over my favorite, and it keeps bumping up higher and higher in the favorite. I think the only thing that has been stopping me so far is that like I haven't found a yarn that I really would like to choose, because you need a yarn that would have plenty of color options. This is very high on my to knit list. I kind of hope that I might get to it this winter, maybe not, we'll see, but I love this pattern. Speaking of patterns that I want to make, next up we have Roof Sweater by Rebecca Clow. I have this pattern and I have yarn for it, so this will be one of the next projects that I'm making. It's a pattern that calls for a DK weight yarn. It's 20 stitches for 10 centimeters. One of the best parts about this pattern is that it uses contiguous shoulder construction. As I mentioned, my absolutely favorite shoulder construction. I just adore how it's worked, and I'm really sad that more designers aren't using it. For this pattern, I really love the fun gradient effect that people are using, where they're using like similar colors and then starting with either the darker or lighter, and then because of how the color work is built, it almost gives you the gradient. But I'll confess that that's not my plan. For my sweater I will be using navy blue and white, so there won't be like that gradient, it will be more contrasty. But I just think this would be such an amazing everyday sweater. And Rebecca Clow is well known for doing really good size inclusive patterns. Her patterns are also extensively test knit always, so I really trust her patterns. There was a weird bit that in the comments of this pattern there were several complaints, and I almost didn't include this pattern because like it was raising several red flags. But then Rebecca Clow had her birthday sale. I bought the pattern because like I was gonna knit it anyway. Like if there's red flags in the pattern, I can adapt it. I just wouldn't suggest it to other people. But now I have the pattern and I checked through it and I couldn't see any of the issues that the comments are about. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe she has updated the pattern recently, or maybe there have been like misunderstanding. I don't know. Either way, I could not see any of the red flags that the commenters were talking about. And by the way, from Rebecca Clow, there is another pattern that's even more popular for beginner knitters, specifically for Colourwork. It's Kintra. It's a round yoke sweater combined with a little bit of raglan beneath the round yoke. You can work it up in up to 24 colors, or you could be using just few colors. That's entirely up to you. It's amazing for mini skeins. So it's actually a really great pattern that people really love this. It's an incredibly popular pattern. The only reason why I didn't include it as my first choice in this bundle is that it's doing 1 by 1 stitch. So you knit with one color, then you change to another color, 1 stitch, then again 1 stitch, 1 color, 1 stitch, another color, 1 stitch, 1 color. And I remember when I started knitting Colourwork, I personally really hated patterns that call for that. I did not enjoy changing colors after every stitch, and I know that lots of other people also wouldn't really enjoy that. So that would not be my first choice for complete beginners. I feel like you kind of would need to see for yourself if that's something you like or no, but just be warned that lots of people don't enjoy changing colors after every single stitch, especially if you're not holding both yarns at the same time. If you're knitting with only one yarn at a time, then dropping it and changing in that way, then patterns like this just get really tedious. But again, that's completely a personal preference. I know that the pattern is great reviews about it, and if this is something that you're into, I highly suggest this pattern. Next up, we have yet another pattern from a really well-known designer. This is Bergman Sweater by Caitlin Hunter. Knit in worsted weight yarn at 18 stitches per 10 centimeters. I really love the chunky design on it. This would be such a fun, fast knit. Like, I feel like this pattern would just be addictive. This is also mildly giving me like some sort of retro vibes, and I think this would make an amazing everyday sweater. It has a bunch of projects on it. You can choose a huge range of positive ease, so this calls from 5 to 20 centimeters of positive ease, which is also great because I don't personally enjoy sweaters with big positive ease. I basically never knit anything that's bigger than like 10 centimeters positive ease. Like, hello. And as I was looking through the projects, this project just kept catching my eye. Like, this just fully leans into that retro vibe with like burnt orange and brown. I could imagine this on me. I would be switching the colors around, so the brown would be contrast color and the whole sweater would be orange. And I also love the little detail around the waist and around the cuff. I just fully can see myself knitting it, and I can also see how it would be easy enough for most beginners. I think for this pattern there are few places where you would need to catch floats. But again, even though I kind of built this list around the concept of not catching floats, I don't want to give the impression that catching floats is something like really difficult or terrible or that you should avoid that. It's not. You can absolutely do that. I was just going for the easiest possible options as your first project. That's all there is to it. Catching floats isn't like a hard, insurmountable obstacle that you should be afraid of. And to finish off really strong, I have Alma Slipover by Susanna Kartinen. It's a DK weight pattern knit in 20 stitches per 10 centimeters. It's a really nice V-neck vest. Again, the color work is only done on the body and everything else is knit in pure stockinette. For this pattern, I really appreciate that it includes optional bust shaping with short rows. That's a really nice thing to have, and the traditional colorwork motif there is just so delicious. This pattern also features corrugated ribbing, which some people might argue that it's not exactly like a beginner friendly skill. I don't fully agree. I think that especially when done on round, corrugated ribbing isn't really that hard. So if you're not one of those people who are terrified of doing purl stitches, I think you'll be completely fine. And if you need help, I have a tutorial on the corrugated rib. So before you decide if you want to knit a pattern like that, you can check out my tutorial, see how the corrugated rib is done, and see if that's something that you want to do. But even if you don't want to do it, for this pattern, I feel like you could easily just knit one-on-one rib in one color and it would still look really nice. The corrugated rib is just like a really nice detail on it. And again, keeping with my philosophy that you should start with something that excites you, I just want to finish off this list by saying that you don't need to be scared of any knitting techniques. 2 sticks and a piece of string aren't smarter than you. You can figure this out. There's a bunch of tutorials out there. I have lots of tutorials on my channel, and if you are getting stuck at something, you can always leave me a comment and ask for something that you would want me to show you. I very often make tutorials when people have asked me for something specific, or you can find any other tutorials on YouTube. There's a bunch of them. I just want you to not be scared of knitting. Thank you for watching this entire video. I truly appreciate your support. And if you would like to support me further, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account where you can either choose like a subscription mode or a one-time payment. And just a quick note about that account, there is no extra content in there, because I truly believe that the world would be a better place if everybody had a chance to learn to knit or craft. So I don't want to lock any of my tutorials or like informational videos behind a paywall. All of my crafting videos will always be for free. That account is simply meant as an extra support for me making videos like these, and that support will help me making even more videos, testing out new ideas, experimenting with new ideas, and bringing you even more information about knitting and other crafts. But please don't feel bad if that's something that you can't afford. I truly appreciate you being here. You watching the videos really help. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.